All right, welcome back to another video. In this one, I want to talk about the idea of boredom and how boredom is something that we can use to actually benefit our lives. Think about it. When's the last time you were actually bored? When's the last time you did nothing? And I don't mean time when you were just sitting on your couch watching TV or sitting in bed scrolling on your phone. That's not doing nothing. You're still doing something. But I mean actually did nothing. These days it rarely happens because we have our phones. We can scroll social media, we can text our friends, we can watch videos. Our minds are so hyperstimulated from the moment we get up until the moment we go to bed. And this, to me, from my experience and seeing other people, it's a major issue. It's actually the root cause of a lot of stress and anxiety that many people are facing on a day-to-day basis. So in this video, I just want to talk about why this is such a big issue, what we can do to change it, and why doing nothingness is actually so effective for your brain and the impact it'll have on your life. I remember being quite bored a lot as a kid. And I'd go to my parents saying, I'm bored, I don't know what to do. They'd tell me, just go outside, go run around, play sports, play in the woods, whatever. And that's what I did. Now, yeah, of course, I am of the generation who had Nintendo DS's and Nintendo Wii's and iPods early on in my teenage years, but that was really it. And my parents, which I'm very fortunate for, they did set limitations on how much I could play with these things. There were people who would often say, yeah, well, you can play for an hour, you can play for 2 hours, but that means you're going to be outside for double that amount of time. But these days, as I look at myself and I look at even my family members who have younger kids, they don't ever experience boredom. I don't think I've ever heard anybody in the last 4 or 5 years ever tell me, yeah, I'm just so bored right now. Because the truth is, we don't ever experience boredom. We're so plugged in. We're so overly stimulated, as I said, from the moment we get up until the moment we go to bed. We have social media, we have TV and movies and video games and all these things right at our fingertips 24/7. And of course, I'm a fan of social media. I post these videos on social media, right? I love movies, I love TV shows, but our brains can only handle so much information. The thing is, we're plugged in all the time, from morning until night, constantly scrolling, constantly reading new things and watching videos. But the issue is that when your brain doesn't have the time of doing nothing, when you're always plugged in, it can't process through all that information. And that information buildup creates this mental fog and this underlying stress and this underlying anxiety that ultimately affects all areas of your life. And when you're always stressed, when you're always anxious, you make poor decisions. You're not thinking clearly. And from there, life just goes downhill. Look, maybe I'm being overdramatic. Maybe I'm being a bit over the top. But I have personally seen how information overload has affected my life in negative ways. And only since really unplugging and taking a step back these last 2 to 3 years have I actually noticed, yeah, I can think way clearer, I can communicate more effectively, and I don't really ever experience anxiety in a negative way. It's not about giving up your phone or social media or TV. No, that's unsustainable and honestly not worth it. But what I'm getting at is that you can every single day spend time doing nothing. Time every day where there is no significant sensory input, when you're not scrolling, when you're not watching TV, when you're not having conversations with other people. Time when you're just embracing silence, embracing solitude. It'll feel really boring at first because your brain is so used to being overstimulated all the time, but eventually, and this is where it's really awesome, you'll actually begin to enjoy those periods of doing nothing. And you'll soon begin to appreciate those things that you would otherwise overlook because you're just always so distracted. And your mind is always fixated on scrolling or checking emails or responding to messages. And what happens when you embrace doing nothing and you're fully present within the moment every single day, the default mode network, which is a system within your brain, this activates. And what this does is it processes through all that information that you have stored up in here and just casts it aside. All that stuff that you don't need, all that stuff that's taking up space within your head, it makes sense of it. And all of a sudden, you don't have this mental clutter. You're thinking clearly. You're processing ideas. You're coming to these big realizations that you couldn't before. This often leads to those breakthrough ideas or those all of a sudden big insights that just change your life. But it only happens if you take time to do nothing and embrace stillness every single day. So start here. Embrace boredom. Embrace silence. Rather than distracting yourself and always being overstimulated when you feel the slightest bit of anxiety or stress or loneliness, just no. Sit with the feeling, sit with the moment, and just allow your brain to calm down. And I know it'll feel weird. It'll feel very strange because everybody around you is always so plugged in at the first sign of boredom. But when you can sit with it, that's where the biggest insights, the biggest ideas come through. And much of your underlying anxiety and stress will just melt away. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like the video, subscribe, share it with a friend, all that good stuff. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.